So, good morning, everybody. Today's the 22nd of September, 2023. And if you remember my historical events of my own personal 928 S4, my engine problems and my engine acquisition issues, and how it led me to the now deceased Richard Van Meteran in Atlanta, and how he provided a motor to me in exchange for me making him a yellow dolly like that right there for his projects and his cars. And the story went on, and many of you know this, the story went on that perhaps maybe this motor that Richard got for me was a hot motor received to Richard by illegitimate means. His former co-worker in Atlanta, can't remember his name, I haven't seen any videos from him in a while. He and I did talk about this motor in particular, and I was very interested in making sure that I either had a motor that was illegitimately gotten by Richard or not. And I shared with him, forgive me for not remembering his name, and I'll get it after I get this video done. I shared with him photos, numbers, pictures, and even the timeline story of how that motor came about, you know, the pictures of it and things like that. And he and his people came to the conclusion that this motor was not a quote hot motor, a stolen motor, or an inappropriately acquired motor. So part of that whole situation was me sitting and waiting and wondering, and I even told him, I said, look, if this motor is not technically legally mine, I'd be willing to give it to the owner, you know, and chalk it up as a quote loss on my end. And he was very appreciative of that. And that's just goes down to core ethical stuff. You know, just do the right thing at all times. So he came back to me and he said, no, that motor, that's yours. Richard, we don't know anything about that motor. So apparently that's a motor that Richard did acquire under proper conditions. So I'm happy with that. The other part of that whole equation was Richard gave it to me and he said it was serviceable, but the bottom alternator bracket was broken. And I identified that with Richard right then and there when I picked it up. He said, oh, well, we'll just give you another one. And I said, Richard, I have to go. You know, he was going to give me the motor from a white S4. And the motor was still in that car. And I understand that if I did get that motor, that would have been inappropriately acquired and inappropriately acquired engine. So I said, no, I got to go. I got to go back to Texas. So that never happened, thank goodness. And you know, I just wish Richard Van Meteran to rest in peace. So the engine cradle on my motor is now fixed, and I'm going to show you that right now. So here it is. This is the motor that's going to go in my S4. And this is the cradle. This was broken. About where my finger was completely broken off. A chunk missing. Obviously damaged from being hit. Failed motor mounts probably. Motor grounding out. And breaking the tab off. This is a complex weld to do, and I had Bob Jones from Jones Auto Works, WERKS, in San Antonio. Built that back up, and we used this thing in my left hand, that mounting thing, I guess, for the alternator bracket. The alternator bracket, we used that as a jig, and Bob, it cost me 10 hours of labor to get that done, for Bob to fix that. Wasn't cheap, but it's I think it'll be worth it. So of course I got to clean it up very well, clean all the shavings out of it, blow it out really, really nicely, and then mount it up to this motor. This motor, the pink, I've already taken it to the machine shop looking for stress cracks and things like that, and it's fine. The engine's good. The heads are basically brand new. They're in very good shape. But let me pull back here a little bit and tell you and show and share what is going to happen here in the next couple weeks. The 79 motor is going to come apart, take the heads off, and make sure it's good to go. Probably pull the pan off. And as each part comes off on this motor, an 86 motor, we're going to, how do I say it? The unique bolts and hardware that's on the 928 motor, where it comes out, we will compare where it goes in on this one and find the appropriate part from this motor's box of parts, new parts, old parts, serviceable parts, and put this motor back together again. My motor, I will do the same thing to this motor at the same time I'm doing this 86 motor. So this is going to be a, I don't want to say assembly line, but it's going to be a process involving all these motors at the same time. Also, this torque tube, and the torque tube from that 86 out there under the cover will also be rebuilt. So I'm acquiring and building the tools to take out the bearings. So this is going to be happening as the next big project internally for the Porsches. And I'm just kind of taking pictures and videos of this at this point, this process, you know, as right now. Excuse me. And of course take pictures and videos as we progress, putting these motors back together and taking this one apart, servicing it, and putting that back together. So it's kind of interesting. I like setting up operations to do this like this en masse. So my goal and objective here is to mitigate any wrong bolts in the wrong hole type of process in doing it this way. This one is pretty intact. The only thing I've taken off this engine so far is the intake manifold, which is a US motor model, and the Euro intake manifold that the owner supplied me is right here, already blasted and in its powder coat, which makes me wonder if because the ports are bigger on the intake manifold tubes, if they're going to match on that head. I don't think they will, but she wants it put on, so we'll put that one on. All the fuel lines and all the clamps, anything that's off this motor right now that that was gold anodized or zinc anodized is now down at the plater. They are done, and I'll insert that video here at the end of this one so you can see just what they look like. they're done. I just got to go down and pick them up. So it's a nice little process, and I think I'm going to have success doing it this way. Takes a long time. Choose. You know, they came out pretty good. All these things, these brake parts,
Yeah.
axles, and then they came out good. So probably if everything is done by Friday or even next Monday, you know, including the other fuel rails and stuff, I'll pick them up then.
He'll call and when it's all done. So
Yeah.
so if it is done by either tomorrow or the next day, then he'll call for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Cool. Well, that was the video of these parts down at the plating place, and here's continuation, but they're finished, of the fuel lines for the 1979 928. It came out really, really beautiful. All the nuts, they were all rotten and crappy looking. Now they're like brand new. Washers. These are the axle pins. Excuse me, the axle pins for the rear axles. Just like brand new, my friends. Brand new stuff. Rear suspension bolts. All the clamps that were on Allison's motor. More clamps. The fuel injector, mechanical fittings. The other end of the fittings. These rear brake shields. And then these inner brake shield bracket things that go on the inside of the hub. These cam gears, they showed like extremely nominal wear, hardly any, to my perception. So I put these in, and the anodized place said that these now are quite a bit harder and able to withstand elements and salt spray much more than just the regular cast aluminum. I mainly ran these as an experiment just to see how they come out, how they look, and if it does any noticeable improvement on the gears, mainly the surface of the gear teeth. But I don't see any really worthwhile improvement, but it's still debatable. I'm not quite sure, but it may be worth doing. I'm not 100% convinced of that yet. So the only other line that we could not get was this line right here. It broke. I just couldn't get it released. And it goes right here into the fuel distributor. So I'll get a new line. There might be a couple more pieces on this motor, like this bracket, that I will remove, probably these bolts, and take them down and get them plated also for the second or third batch on that. Okay? Well, that's a report on how these bolts came out. I'm very pleased how they did come out. These were all media blasted, plastic media blasted, I should correctly state. Then they went down to the plater. So my 84, Allison 79, and my 81, or Steve's car, I don't know. Anyways, that's it. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Tschüss.